Rain lashed against the cracked pavement of the East End, each drop like a tiny hammer against the concrete. I stood in the shadows of an abandoned warehouse, the hood of my black jacket pulled low over my face. 3 months. That's how long it had been since Marcus, King as he called himself now, had thrown me out of the empire we built together. The billboard above Times Square flashed his image next to that woman, Isabella. All curves and smiles, no scars, no blood on her hands. She wore my crown now, a pretty little thing who wouldn't know how to negotiate with a rival crew or handle a betrayal without calling for backup. Still watching from the sidelines, Raven? I turned slowly. Marco, one of my oldest soldiers, emerged from the darkness. His face was weathered, loyal. He'd been with me since before Marcus, since the early days when we were just scrappers fighting for territory. Just observing the new management, I replied, my voice low. How's business? Marco spat on the ground. Business is shit. Isabella's making deals with the Italians, cutting prices, thinks volume will make up for quality. The old crews aren't happy. Marcus happy with his new puppet? Marcus is too busy playing king to notice his kingdom's crumbling. Marco stepped closer, lowering his voice. The Russians are moving in on the docks. They're testing boundaries. Isabella wants to meet them head on. I shook my head. Amateurs always think with guns instead of brains. That's why I'm here. The old guard, we miss your leadership. We need you back. The rain intensified, soaking through my jacket. I looked up at the sky, letting the drops wash over my face. 3 months of hiding, planning, waiting. Marcus had taken everything, my network, my routes, my contacts, but he'd made one mistake. He'd underestimated my loyalty. The streets had a long memory when it came to respect. Tell the others to be ready, I said finally. But not yet. Timing is everything. Marco nodded. Whatever you need. As he disappeared back into the shadows, I pulled out my phone. A single message from an unknown number. They know you're back. Watch yourself. I deleted it. Of course they knew. The streets always talked, but they didn't know what I had planned. They didn't know about the weaknesses I'd built into our empire, the safety nets only I knew how to access. 3 blocks away, a black SUV pulled up to the warehouse. Marcus stepped out, adjusting his tailored suit. Isabella followed, laughing at something he said. She clung to his arm like a trophy. I watched from my hiding spot as they entered the building. My building. The one where we'd planned our first major heist, where we'd celebrated victories, where we'd made love on the cold concrete floor after a bloody battle. Now it was theirs, but not for long. I slipped away through the alleyways, my footsteps silent on the wet pavement. There was work to do, contacts to reconnect with, plans to finalize. The queen was ready to reclaim her throne. My safe house was a dusty loft above a defunct textile factory. The air smelled of old fabric and ozone. Inside, a woman with spiky pink hair and multiple piercings hunched over a bank of monitors, her fingers flying across a backlit keyboard. Ghost, the best digital ghost in the city. She could track anyone, move money through untraceable pathways, and pull down firewalls like they were curtains. They're sloppy, Ghost said without looking up. Isabella's using her personal email for crew rosters. Marcus is still using the same encryption key you two built 5 years ago, the one you have a backdoor to. I shed my wet jacket, tossing it onto a chair. Show me. On the main screen, a complex web of transactions appeared. Red lines showed money flowing out. Bribes, payments for cheap, cut product, extravagant expenses for Isabella. Green lines, the old revenue streams, were thinning out. She's bleeding the empire dry, I murmured, and Marcus is too blinded by whatever he sees in her to notice. Or he doesn't care, Ghost offered. He's got the crown. He thinks that's enough. It's not, I said, my eyes tracing the lines to a large, outgoing payment. What's this? 100 grand to an offshore account? Not one of ours. Ghost tapped a few keys. A new window popped up. A name, Dmitry Volkov, the head of the Russian mob at the docks. He's paying them off? I asked, a cold knot forming in my stomach. Worse, Ghost said. He's paying them for a meeting. Isabella scheduled it. She thinks she can negotiate a partnership. She's offering them our primary shipping route through the harbor in exchange for protection from the Italians. My blood ran cold. That route was the lifeblood of our operation. It was how we moved 70% of our product. Giving it away wasn't a negotiation. It was a surrender. She was trading our kingdom for illusion of safety. She's going to get us all killed or locked up, I stated. The Russians don't partner, they consume. The meeting's tonight, Ghost said. Midnight, Pier 17. A plan, sharp and dangerous, began to form in my mind. I need you to do something for me, Ghost. I need you to make sure that meeting never happens, not the way they've planned it anyway. A slow smile spread across her face. What did you have in mind? First, reroute that payment. Send it to an orphanage in Belarus. A little chaos to muddy the waters. Then I need you to burn Isabella's communication channels for the next 2 hours. I want her blind and deaf when she gets to that pier. And Marcus? Leave his line open. I want him to hear what happens. The rain had softened to a miserable drizzle by the time I reached Pier 17. I moved through the maze of shipping containers like a phantom, the silence broken only by the lapping of water against the pylons and the distant groan of a ship's horn. From my vantage point behind a stack of containers, I had a clear view of the designated meeting spot. A black sedan arrived. Dmitry Volkov got out, flanked by 2 mountainous men. He was a wolf, all lean muscle and predatory stillness. He didn't look happy. A few minutes later, a second car pulled up. Isabella stepped out, alone, arrogant. She wore a designer dress and heels, completely impractical for the docks. She thought this was a business meeting, a power play. Dmitri, she said, her voice dripping with false confidence. I'm glad you could make it. Volkov didn't smile. You are late, and you are not Marcus. Marcus sends his regards, she said, waving a dismissive hand. But I'm in charge of operations now. I'm the one you'll be dealing with. Volkov took a step closer. I deal with strength, not with children playing dress-up. You offer me a route I can take. You ask for protection you cannot afford. You insult me. Isabella's facade cracked. I don't understand. We had a deal. There is no deal, Volkov said, his voice dropping to a low growl. There is only what I take. His men moved forward, their intentions clear. Isabella's eyes widened in terror. She fumbled for her phone, but the screen was black. Panicked, she looked around, her eyes scanning the darkness. They found me for a split second. I saw the fear, the dawning realization that she was in way over her head. Then, I pressed the button on the small device in my hand. The sound wasn't loud, but it was deafening in the tense silence. A single gunshot echoed from the far end of the pier. A warning shot. Volkov's men froze, their heads snapping toward the sound. It was a distraction, nothing more, but it was enough. Isabella didn't hesitate. She turned and ran, stumbling in her ridiculous heels, fleeing back to her car like a frightened rabbit. Volkov watched her go, his expression a mixture of contempt and curiosity. He knew it wasn't one of his men. He knew someone else was here, someone playing a different game. He scanned the darkness, his gaze lingering on my hiding spot for a heartbeat too long. Then he and his men got back in their car and drove away, leaving the pier to the silence and the rain. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. The first message had been sent. The Queen was back on the board. The roar of the engine was a distant thunder as Isabella's car sped away from the pier. I waited in the darkness, the cold seeping into my bones until the red taillights vanished. Volkov's curiosity was a weapon I could use. His contempt for Isabella was an even bigger one. He wouldn't forget this night. Back at the loft, Ghost was already pulling up comms logs. Isabella called Marcus 90 seconds after she peeled out, she said, pointing to a line on the screen. Sounded hysterical, according to the voice stress analysis. Lots of "he tried to kill me, and it was a setup." She'll blame everyone but herself, I muttered, pouring a glass of whiskey. What's Marcus doing? He tried calling Volkov 3 times, went straight to voicemail. Then he put out a call on the emergency channel. He's summoning his captains. I smiled into my glass. Good. Let him scramble. Let him see how little control he actually has without me holding the leash. He's weak, Ghost stated, a simple fact. He always relied on you for the strategy. He's just muscle with a crown. And that crown is getting heavier by the minute. I downed the whiskey, the burn a welcome distraction. It's time to remind the old guard who their true queen is. Contact Silas. Tell him I need to see him. Alone. Ghost's fingers paused over her keyboard. Silas? He's been off the grid since Marcus sidelined him. Says the new operation has no discipline, no honor. He's right, I said, and that's why he'll talk to me. The meeting place was an old boxing gym in the Bowery, a place that smelled of sweat, leather, and faded dreams. Silas was in the ring, his fists wrapped, hitting a heavy bag with the rhythmic, brutal force of a jackhammer. He was a mountain of a man, his face a roadmap of old fights, his presence a physical force. He stopped when I entered, his breathing heavy, his eyes wary. "Raven," he grunted, grabbing a towel. "Ye heard you were back in the wind. Didn't expect a visit." "I need your help, Silas," he snorted, wiping his face. "Help with what? Taking back what's yours?" I saw the billboard. Marcus traded a queen for a court jester. That's his problem, not mine. "It's everyone's problem," I countered, stepping closer to the ring. "Isabella just tried to hand our primary shipping route to the Russians. Volkov was ready to carve her up and eat her for dinner." Silas's expression didn't change, but a flicker of something, anger maybe, showed in his eyes. "She knows nothing of the code, of the balance." "She knows nothing," I agreed. "And Marcus is letting her run the show because she's pretty. He's forgotten the streets respect strength, not a pretty face. He's forgotten what we built." Silas was quiet for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the heavy bag swaying gently. "What do you want from me, Raven?" "I'm taking back what's mine, piece by piece, but I can't do it alone. I need someone who understands the hardware, someone the men still respect." He looked at me then, really looked at me. "And if I say no, I'm done with this life, done with the blood." "Then you can watch as everything we bled for, everything you sacrificed for, gets torn apart by amateurs and Russians," I said, my voice hard as steel. "Is that the legacy you want, Silas? To fade away while a fool burns your kingdom to the ground?" He didn't answer, but I saw the shift in his eyes. The warrior in him couldn't stand by and watch his world crumble. "I'll think about it," he said finally, turning his back to me. "That's all I ask," I said, knowing I had him. I walked away, leaving him to his ghosts and his memories. Back in the loft, Ghost had a new development. "Marcus is moving fast," she said. "He's calling in all external product. He's planning a massive shipment tomorrow night to make up for the revenue he's losing. A show of force." "Where?" "The old warehouse on the east side, the one with the private dock." My blood went cold. That was my warehouse. The first piece of territory we ever claimed. It was where Marcus and I had cemented our partnership. Using it for this botched operation was the ultimate insult. "He's trying to prove he's still in charge," I said, a plan already forming. "He's putting all his eggs in one basket." "He's also pulling most of his security detail to the warehouse," Ghost added, leaving his penthouse and Isabella lightly guarded. A dangerous idea sparked in my mind. 2 targets, 1 night. A chance to cripple his operation and send a personal message at the same time. "He wants to put on a show?" I said, a grim smile touching my lips. "Let's give him one he'll never forget." The plan was a symphony of chaos, composed in the dead of night. Ghost's fingers danced across her keyboard, her face illuminated by the glow of a dozen screens. "Okay, here's the play-by-play," she said, her voice a low, focused hum. "At 2300 hours, I'm going to trigger a series of false alarms at 3 different warehouses across the district. It'll pull Marcus's security teams thin, force them to split up. While they're chasing ghosts," I added, looking at the building schematics on the main monitor, "Silas and his team will move into position near the east side warehouse. And you," Ghost said, swiping to a new screen, a live security feed of Marcus's penthouse, "will be paying a visit to the princess." "Silas is in?" I asked. A new message popped up on Ghost's screen. 2 men. Loyal. Ready. It was from Silas. He hadn't just agreed, he'd brought his own cavalry. "Looks like he brought friends," Ghost noted. "Good," I said. "I need him to create a loud, messy diversion at the shipping docks adjacent to the warehouse. Nothing that gets anyone hurt, just enough noise to draw the guards' attention. While they're looking one way, I'll slip in the other." "And the product?" Ghost asked. "I'm not burning it," I said, a cold fire in my voice. "I'm tainting it. A little chemical cocktail that renders it useless and highly detectable. Marcus's show of force will become a public health crisis. The feds will be all over it. His reputation will be ashes." Ghost grinned. "Nasty. I like it." "And Isabella?" she asked, her eyes on the penthouse feed. "I'm going to show her what a real queen looks like." The city was a tapestry of lights as I moved through its veins. At 11 p.m. sharp, Ghost's plan kicked in. On my phone, I watched as the city's emergency response system lit up like a Christmas tree. Sirens wailed in the distance, a perfect orchestrated distraction. I met Silas and his two men, Rico and Hector, in a dark alley a block from the Target warehouse. They were grim-faced and ready, armed with non-lethal gear, smoke bombs, flashbangs. "Go loud," I told Silas. "Make it sound like a war is breaking out at the docks. Give me 10 minutes." He nodded once. "See you on the other side." As they melted into the shadows, I turned my attention to the warehouse. The fence was topped with razor wire, but I knew a weak spot, a section we'd designed for a quick escape years ago, a loose panel hidden behind a dumpster. I slipped through, my movements silent and practiced. Inside, the warehouse was a hive of activity. Men in black tactical gear moved with purpose, loading crates onto a waiting speedboat. The air was thick with tension. I stayed low, using the stacks of crates as cover, my heart a steady drum against my ribs. From the docks, the diversion began. The sharp crack of flashbangs echoed through the night, followed by the hiss of smoke canisters. Shouts erupted. The guards at the warehouse door hesitated, their attention drawn to the chaos. That was my opening. I sprinted from my hiding place to the main stack of product, a mountain of sealed crates waiting to be loaded. I pulled a small industrial-grade sprayer from my backpack. The chemical inside was clear, odorless, and deadly to the product's molecular structure. One spray, and the entire multi-million-dollar shipment was worthless. I moved quickly, methodically, coating crate after crate. A guard turned back, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. I froze behind a crate, holding my breath. The beam swept past me, then returned, lingering. I was out of time. I pressed the final button on my phone. "Now, Ghost." Instantly, the warehouse's fire alarm screamed to life. Red lights flashed, disorienting everyone. Panic erupted. Men scattered, abandoning their posts. In the confusion, I slipped back out the way I came, my mission complete. As I emerged into the alley, my phone buzzed. A text from Ghost. "Penthouse is clear. Isabella's alone. Marcus is stuck in traffic trying to get back from the chaos. The stage is yours." I pulled the hood of my jacket up and headed toward the gleaming glass tower that housed my former home. It was time for the second act. The service elevator of the Sterling Tower was cold and metallic. Ghost had looped the security cameras and disabled the alarms on this specific car, giving me a 5-minute window from the basement to the penthouse. The doors slid open silently into a private foyer, the one Marcus and I had always used. It still smelled of the same vanilla and sandalwood air freshener I used to pick out. The penthouse was exactly as I remembered, yet completely different. My minimalist, functional decor had been replaced by gaudy, ostentatious furniture, gold trim, plush white rugs, and abstract art that screamed new money. It was the soul of our empire, gutted and redecorated by an amateur. Isabella was at the bar, her back to me, pouring a glass of champagne. She wore a silk robe, her hair slightly disheveled. She was humming to herself, a nervous, off-key tune. "I wouldn't drink that if I were you," I said, my voice quiet but sharp enough to cut glass. She spun around, the champagne flute slipping from her hand and shattering on the marble floor. Her eyes, wide with shock and fear, scanned the darkness of the foyer. "Who's there?" "Marcus?" she called out, her voice trembling. I stepped out of the shadows. "Marcus is busy cleaning up your mess. The Russians, remember?" Recognition dawned, followed by a wave of terror. "You, Raven." "The one and only," I said, walking slowly into the living room. I trailed my fingers over the back of a ridiculously ornate sofa. "You've redecorated. It's a lot." "What do you want?" she stammered, backing away until she hit the bar. "I want to explain something to you," I said, my tone calm, conversational. "This isn't a game. This isn't some reality show where you get to play queen. The streets we run, they eat people like you for breakfast." "I'm in charge now," she tried to say, but the words lacked any conviction. "No," I corrected her gently. "You're a costume, a pretty distraction for a man who got bored with power. He gave you my keys, my contacts, my life's work, but he forgot to give you the one thing that matters, respect. And you can't buy that. You can't sleep with someone to get it. You have to bleed for it." I stopped a few feet from her. She was trapped, cornered like the rabbit she was at the pier. "You think you're a queen?" I continued, my voice dropping to a near whisper. "A queen knows her territory. She knows every exit, every weak point. She knows that the loose floorboard by the fireplace, I tapped my foot on the exact spot, hides a loaded 9mm. A queen doesn't get scared, she gets even. Her face was pale, her body trembling. She was looking at me not as a rival but as a monster from a nightmare. "Please," she whispered, "just go." "I'm going," I said, "but I'm leaving you a message for Marcus." I walked over to the grand piano that sat in the corner of the room. It was the one thing I'd left behind, the one thing he hadn't let her replace. On it sat a framed photo of him and Isabella, laughing on a yacht. I picked it up, looked at it for a moment, and then smashed it against the edge of the piano. Glass shattered everywhere. I took a single sharp shard from the floor. Then I leaned down and carved a single word into the polished wood of the piano lid. "Raven, tell him the queen is back," I said, dropping the shard onto the keys. It landed with a discordant jangle, and "I'm taking back everything." I walked away, leaving her standing there amidst the broken glass and the chilling message I'd left on the heart of our empire. As the service elevator doors closed, I could have sworn I heard a scream. My phone buzzed. A text from Silas. "Diversion complete. We're clear." A second text from Ghost. "Marcus is 10 minutes out, and he is furious." Perfect. Let him come home to his broken queen and his vandalized throne. Let the anger build. The final move was coming. Marcus's penthouse was a disaster zone when he arrived. Isabella was huddled on the floor, sobbing amidst the wreckage of the shattered photo frame. The word carved into his piano, "Raven," seemed to pulse in the dim light. He didn't go to her. He didn't comfort her. He walked straight to the bar, poured 3 fingers of whiskey, and downed it in one go. His face was a mask of cold, controlled fury. He was a volcano about to erupt. "Tell me," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. Isabella sniffled, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "She was here, Marcus. She came out of the shadows. She said she was taking everything back." "Did she hurt you?" he asked, his back still to her. "No, she just talked. And then she broke the picture and carved her name." Her voice rose to a whine. "She's crazy! We have to call the police." Marcus let out a short, harsh laugh. He turned around, his eyes like chips of ice. "The police? Isabella, you really don't understand, do you? There are no police here. There's only us and her." He pulled out his phone, his thumb hovering over Ghost's number, the one he still had from the old days. He stopped himself. No, this was personal. This was a message. It had to be answered in kind. Just then, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. He knew who it was before he even opened it. "The product is tainted. The feds will be all over it by morning. Your show of force is a failure. Your kingdom is ashes. I'm waiting for you at the warehouse. The one where it all began. Come and get your crown back. If you dare." It wasn't a threat. It was a challenge. A direct public insult to his manhood, his power. She was calling him out, daring him to face her on the ground where they had built their empire. Isabella watched his face, her own fear momentarily forgotten. "What is it? What's wrong?" "Stay here," he ordered, his voice flat. "Don't leave this room. Don't answer the door. Don't call anyone." "Marcus, where are you going?" "To finish this," he said, already striding toward the door. He wasn't just king anymore. He was a king whose queen had returned to claim her throne, and his entire court was watching to see how he'd respond. He couldn't back down. He wouldn't. The old warehouse on the east side was quiet when I arrived. The chaos from earlier had dissipated, leaving behind an eerie stillness. The tainted crates of product sat untouched, a monument to Marcus's failure. Silas, Rico, and Hector were already inside, positioned in the shadows of the steel rafters high above the main floor. They had the high ground, a tactical advantage. "He'll come," Silas's voice crackled through the small earpiece I wore. "A man like him can't resist a challenge like that." "He'll bring men," I replied, my own voice a whisper. I stood in the center of the vast empty space, directly under a single bare bulb that cast long distorted shadows. I was the bait, exposed and vulnerable. "Let him," Silas said. "We're ready." I didn't have to wait long. The sound of multiple engines cut through the night. 3 black SUVs pulled up outside, their headlights cutting sharp beams through the dusty warehouse windows. Doors opened and slammed shut. The heavy tread of boots on concrete echoed. Marcus entered first. He was flanked by 6 of his most loyal enforcers, all big, armed, and radiating menace. He stopped just inside the doorway, his eyes scanning the darkness before they found me, standing alone in the pool of light. A slow, cold smile spread across his face. "Raven, I have to hand it to you. You always knew how to make an entrance." "I learned from the best," I replied, my voice steady. Or so I thought. His men fanned out, their weapons trained on the shadows, trying to locate the rest of my team. They were professionals, but they were operating in my house, by my rules. "You've caused a lot of trouble," Marcus said, taking a step forward. "Tainted my product, scared my girl, vandalized my home." "Your home?" I let out a short, sharp laugh. "Marcus, this was never your home. It was our empire. I built the systems, I forged the alliances, I gave you the keys. You were just the muscle." The smile vanished from his face, replaced by a raw, snarling anger. "I was the king. I made the decisions. I took the risks." "You took the credit," I corrected him. "And when a pretty face batted her eyelashes, you gave away everything. My legacy. My life's work. You handed my crown to an amateur. That's not a king, Marcus. That's a fool." His hand tightened on the grip of his pistol. "You want it back so bad? Come and take it." "Come and take it," Marcus repeated, his hand resting on the butt of his pistol. I didn't move. I just smiled. "You always were predictable, Marcus. You think strength is about numbers and firepower. You never understood that real power is about knowing the battlefield." I raised my hand and snapped my fingers. On cue, the warehouse's high-pressure fire suppression system erupted. Not water, but thick, white, chemical foam. It rained down from the ceiling in massive, suffocating clouds, blanketing the entire floor. The effect was instantaneous and disorienting. Marcus's men shouted in confusion, their vision obscured, their weapons slipping from their grasp. The foam was slippery, foul-smelling, and non-flammable, a perfect neutralizer. I had installed the system myself years ago, a precaution against a rival's Molotov cocktail. I was the only one who knew the manual override trigger. Through the chaos, I remained still. The foam was designed to avoid the central column where I stood, a small, clear circle in the middle of the white storm. Marcus stumbled, wiping the foam from his eyes, his face a mask of disbelief and rage. His men were down, slipping and sliding, effectively neutralized without a single shot being fired. It was just him and me, as it always should have been. "You see?" I said, my voice echoing in the strange, muffled silence. "I control the environment. I control the game. You just thought you were a player." He roared in frustration, charging at me through the foam. He was pure muscle, pure rage. I sidestepped his clumsy lunge, using his momentum against him, tripping him. He fell hard, sliding across the slick floor. He scrambled to his feet, pulling his gun. But he was slow, blinded by the foam and his own anger. Before he could even raise it, I was on him. I kicked his wrist, a sharp, precise blow. The gun clattered away into the white abyss. We were close now, face to face in the small, clear circle. He swung a wild punch. I ducked under it, driving my palm into his solar plexus. The air whooshed out of his lungs. He staggered back, gasping. "This is over, Marcus," I said, circling him. "You lost. The moment you chose her over me, you lost." "It was my empire," he spat, lunging again. This time I was ready. I caught his arm, twisted it behind his back, and forced him to his knees. He struggled, but I had the leverage. I was smaller, but I was faster, and I fought with a cold precision he could never match. "No," I whispered in his ear, my grip like iron. "It was our empire, and you gave it away. You didn't just betray me, Marcus. You betrayed yourself." I shoved him forward, and he fell face first into the foam. He lay there, defeated, his body trembling with exhaustion and humiliation. I walked over and picked up his gun. I stood over him, the weapon in my hand. For a fleeting moment, the temptation to end it was overwhelming. One shot, all the pain, all the betrayal, gone. But that was his way, not mine. I ejected the magazine, cleared the round from the chamber, and tossed the empty gun at his feet. "Get up," I commanded. He slowly pushed himself up, covered in the white foam, looking like a broken ghost. He looked at the empty gun, then at me. The fury in his eyes was gone, replaced by a hollow emptiness. "You're nothing without me," I said, my voice cold and final. "You're not a king. You're just a man who lost his crown. Get out of my city." I turned my back on him, a gesture of ultimate contempt. I walked away, leaving him kneeling in the ruins of his own making. Silas and his men dropped down from the rafters, their weapons trained on Marcus's disoriented crew, who were now beginning to surrender. Outside, the first rays of dawn were breaking over the skyline. The city was waking up. Ghost was already on the line, her voice crisp in my ear. The old crews are reporting in. They're asking for orders. They're pledging loyalty to you. I looked back at the warehouse, at the man I had once loved, now just a shadow in the distance. The war was over. I had won. Tell them the Queen is home, I said, a sense of calm settling over me for the first time in months. And we have a lot of work to do.